join your aching powers. Among the waking flowers. Waking shifting dunes of imaginary you. To wake in shifting
Fuck me. I want to go home and sober up.
Darling.
Everything's bothering me. I'm hurting, Linda. I love you.
Well, I hate you.
I hate you, you little prick. No, I don't. No, I don't. I love your mama.
Good evening, one and all. How are you all doing tonight? It's certainly another one of those nights. And now, while Sasha normally tends to use this term to refer to a particularly arduous time, I believe her phrasing is always, quote Fred Durst, it's just one of those days. Today I wouldn't quite use that same meaning for it. I wouldn't apply it. We'll probably call this a cold open stream, as Sasha likes to call them, of us just simply kind of diving into what we're doing tonight. And what we're doing is not going to be terribly different than what we were doing last week. Naturally, the atmosphere might be slightly comfier, depending on your definition, but I would like to give a shout out, or at least a decent amount of love to some people who have showed up in chat here. Soroka VTube, wonderful to see you tonight, and I hope band practice goes swimmingly. Be safe out there. Tiana as well, good to see you. Especially good to see you tonight. And I do admit, I'm not terribly happy hearing that you're this close to getting Brigand Oaxaca redeem. Especially given that Sasha has outright admitted that she, quote, wants to defer playing it to me. Which, I suppose, if she wills it. Although, considering that mod contest that the developer had made is especially poignant given the events of the last week for us, perhaps we might fast-track it. Perhaps we might fast-track it just for that. We have a few ideas. I'm allowed to be a little bit of a trickster god if I want to. Raz, as well, I hope you're doing well tonight. Ashley Miami, it is lovely to see you as always. We have not forgotten about that promise to return to you about the racing stream matters, and we will continue to do so once we have finished setting up our little situation. I think there may need to be a proper group chat made for all who are involved in these further plans. That can be a matter for another time. It is a shame that you can't pool your points, given our realization just now about why a Brigand Oaxaca stream could actually be quite cathartic in our current time. Perhaps we will simply just go through and refund every unchecked redeem in our history on Twitch at the moment, just to give everybody all of their points back a little bit faster. Something along those lines. Nightmare Nexus and Ari the Goober, it is good to see you both. Nightmare, how are you doing tonight? How are you doing? I know Sasha had sent you a message regarding stream plans she had next month, and she wanted to double check as to whether or not those were still, based on the time zone that she had set, if those were still possible, as it is currently now on her schedule. And she will return to you about that at another time. It's good to see you as always, Nightmare. And I hope you're doing well tonight. Goodness. No, Nightmare, please. As we will discuss here on stream, I don't think we have any grounds to judge on that matter. It truly hasn't been much different for many of us. Many of us. That is going to do it. Alright. With that, I think we should, as that maid loves to say, get down to brass tacks, shall we? I have something fun to show you. Is fun the word? I'm not sure. So, here I am. Oh, you really needn't thank us for the shout-out. This is simply just part of what we do. So, here I am. Last time we did a stream, I primarily chose to take up Sasha's PNG form, and Ari, I believe, said the phrase, "You don't need to use the PNG if you'd prefer not to," which I personally preferred not to. Indeed, there I am, or want you to believe I am. I had something of a revelation in terms of how I like to see myself today while in VC wasting time with many of the other members of the Hate Crew. Primarily, doing a little bit of cleanup after V decided to front in VC for the first time today. We will get to V. But the general understanding was I came to the realization that how I feel about myself is not so much that I don't like being seen. It's more that I don't like having a form that people can believe can be touched. I don't like having a form that has physicality that can be associated with touch. A physical form that can be touched can be damaged, can be broken, can be bruised, can be weathered away by time, is fallible and mortal. I am okay with having a visible and readable form, but most human and recognizably readable human facial features, as well as body language, are all things I associate with fallibility, with things that are susceptible to the passage of time, susceptible to physical interactions, which I do not find to be terribly pleasant. So, as long as I have some type of form that grants a shape that someone can use to physically perceive to mean that I am around them, is fine. But I don't want it to look like a thing that could rust or rot or be physically removed from a space. I am simply here, and I suppose you'll just have to get used to it. So, Sasha spent a good hour or so making this up for me this morning. Originally, the PNG was simply just her PNG's cut out of some TV static, and originally she did a fair bit of glitch work in Photoshop while exporting the GIF, but it did not export with proper transparency. So we made do by posting into Photoshop, or posting into OBS rather, and using a couple of filters on top of it. I also stated my displeasure that I wish to have some form of voice modulation. You see, vocal folds and voice box and all of these similar different features of the human, the physical human voice are still features that I associate with that matter, and I am simply just making do at present. Sasha stated that having the voice that I would like to have is unfortunately going to take some more time and setup, and she couldn't get it done. We ran through RC20 presets for a decent amount of time before realizing this wasn't really a thing we could make happen. This is alright. Perhaps next time. I think it suits you very well. I appreciate that greatly. I appreciate that. I am also glad that you are here. But yes, so here I am in PNG form, and as we did last time, we are having another nice little campfire chat. I think tonight's song is terribly apt, as it was a song that Sasha found herself listening to quite a bit last week. Nightmare Nexus said I can offer some help with voice modulation things in the future. That would be lovely. We also wanted to remind you of our invitation to our server that we sent you a while back, in case you still would like to be a part of that. I think the rest of the Hate Crew would love having you around. Although, it would also mean you would have to contend with V now. I suppose I can talk about V. We'll broach tonight's topics with a relatively lighthearted one. I'm not going to open up the stick to your guns lyrics at the very beginning of the stream. I think I'm a little bit nicer than that. So, over the course of the past weekend, since around, I want to say, Friday night up until recently, what had happened was Sasha began prototyping an AU, an alternate universe sort of retelling of her own story. And in this alternate retelling, this is quite alright. We simply assumed it was due to some other matters, like simply being too busy, and Sasha is very, very hesitant to poke people about matters. She, as a person who is very consistently overworking herself and taking on far too many people's stresses to be able to contend with her own, which I promise all of you I am ensuring that she is better about that in the future. Sasha, due to having many days where she simply feels like her brain is too busy to do anything like talking to another person, she doesn't feel she has the ability to call anybody else or like have anything to say about it. Riddled with ADHD and forget what this is similar to us. So due to the fact that we are in a similar situation, Sasha generally doesn't really like to poke anybody else. She doesn't really like to poke anybody else about it because she understands, and she would rather simply just let the other person find it when they can, because she sometimes finds being poked about matters she's forgotten or hasn't forgotten but hasn't found the time to get to rather stressful. She has a thing where if she is continuously poked about a thing that she is consistently keeping in mind, it stresses her out a fair bit. If she actually has been making a decent effort to... She's making a decent effort to turn down offers to assist on certain projects, primarily because even if she is told, this is a thing you don't have to rush and you can take your time and it could take months and it would be okay. The problem is that is still a task that is sitting in the back of her mind constantly, and these things, due to the fact that we have a headspace that manifests itself as a visualization of a physical space, these things begin to pile up. They pile up very, very quickly, and due to that, when she has a great many tasks that begin to pile up and overtake our physical headspace, it gets very physically painful to contend with. So this is the reason why she has not poked you about it, is because she doesn't want to bring that onto another person. Good evening, Kelly. It is wonderful to see you. Can we have a shout out for Kelly OC, please? Angel said Bluetooth is working, and I am currently grumpy because they're playing the one movie I've wanted to see in theaters, only on the mainland, in 2 theaters that are barely a few kilometers apart. You're referring to Markiplier's Iron Lung, yes? Sasha got quite a many laughs out of a meme she saw. The Project Spiral Brainworm. Absolutely. Nightmare, we had a morning where we woke up and were so Sasha was so overwhelmed with tasks and to-do lists and everything not congealing into a single one. Tasks and to-do lists all not congealing into a single one, where she had multiple different to-do lists that spanned from things that needed to be done tomorrow to things that needed to be done at a definite point in a very specific month from now, to things that were just ideas she wanted to get to someday. And all of them were in varying different to-do lists across Google Keep, her phone's desktop to-do list, her and 2 different Discord idea channels in different servers. She, as soon as she stepped out of the shower, she was visited by such a piercing headache due to all of the information she was having to keep track of at the same time, that she spent effectively an entire day organizing everything into a single cohesive obsidian to-do list, foldered off and sequestered based on different elements of tasks and ordered in terms of severity or the discretion with which they needed to be completed. She spent an entire day doing this because she simply felt physically pained by all of the things she had to keep track of. And when she has days like this, she often essentially tells people not to talk to her, because even speaking to a person requires more, it begs more information that must be kept track of. Granted, we also learned that a contributor to this was the fact that Sasha had not taken her progesterone in days. We've talked plenty about that, especially with Emot around. And actually, Emot is a character we'll be discussing in a little bit as well regarding our first little topic for tonight. What a tasky maiden. I did admit to Sasha that her assigning my voice to being the tasky maiden's more trickster side that appears only a very specific dialogue box felt very euphoric to me, but she said that would take much work to recreate, and so I obliged. Iron Lung is playing on the island, but Uma, right. Beginning of a new era. That would be the Uma Musume film that features Agnes Tachyon now. But it is good to see you, Kelly, and we very, very much look forward to having you on our stream on Sunday for Burnout, as well as the Stalker Tuesday stream a week from now. Poor little maid doing what maids tend to do, overwork themselves. Indeed, indeed. We will talk more about that in a bit. Tacky, Jungle Pocket, Manhattan Cafe. I've been kin assigned Sirius Symboli, is this correct? Because, I guess we'd have to see. Mira was kin assigned Agnes Tachyon, Mira was kin assigned Tannhauser, Sasha was kin assigned Tenino Gimlet. I've come to terms that there is a horse girl program running on me. This is fair. It seems that I am the main program running on the body that is named Rebecca. I suppose that's something. I guess ancient archaic software is as fitting to this body as ever. Closer to Manhattan's friend. I see. So, speaking of software running on bodies and more, what I meant to get to before I began to experience Sasha's typical tangents was, from the stretch of Friday night to the better part of a couple of days ago, Sasha began writing an AU of her storyline. An AU in which all of the characters existed, but with slightly different personalities, different backgrounds, and different roles in the story. Kelly, please send that to Sasha. I'm sure she would love that, and I will also love it. But the general understanding of this was that Sasha began writing an AU in which Director Mueller was now instead a simple, lowly professor. A withdrawn, nerdy, and very, very suggestible professor who began to have a very, very deep-reaching infatuation with the character of Sasha. And the character of Sasha in this story was instead a, quote, careless sleazebag butch dyke named Sasha Volkova. And she has not been able to stop thinking about it. She has not been able to stop thinking about it. She has been thinking about it, and every single time I am in this headspace, I am reminded, because she's sitting there quietly talking about how much she likes it and how much she can't wait to write it. Raz, understands this because many of the ideas that Sasha is presently incorporating were given to her by Raz. Make of this what you will. I think it is very nice to see Sasha firing on all pistons on something creative, even if it is something creative that appears rather terrifying in its context, because she has seen fit to write an entire micro story all about a woman going through cycles of longing, self-guilt, and I guess the word would be dealing with a toxic relationship where the other side's toxicity is primarily simply from being thoughtless, careless, and constantly away. And much of the story is from Muller's perspective and is about her going, quote, stir crazy while going through cycles of extreme longing. So rather than rather than a relationship featuring an actively sadistic person trying to prey on and go through a toxic savior role, this is instead one character who is simply just extremely apathetic and does not really think long-term about how their actions affect other people, and another character who experiences nothing but the most agonizingly deep continuity to every single day because she spends all of her waking moments in a bunker, constantly experiencing cabin fever and beating herself up for being the reason why this other person never comes by anymore. This is important, I assure you. So, while Sasha was writing this, we began to have realizations that this presentation of another character, of a character that has... This is correct. Raz did gush in our DMs for hours about the horrible, horrible things that she gave her. And many of it will be incorporated. It's good to see you, Ziggy. I hope you're doing well tonight. So, what ended up happening was Sasha realized that the idea of a character being presented that is very similar to her shares a name and is noticeably kind of a huge sleazeball who is also generally kind of a snarky, a quote, snarky cunt, I believe she used the word was. She began to realize it lined up with a few other realizations we had. One of them, also Angel said, shit, I gotta see if I need more cheese for the mac and cheese. Sasha told us about this, and we do hope that MF Doom's villainous mac and cheese goes wonderfully tonight. Please post the results in the kitchen's channel. Thank you. So, Sasha realized that this seemed to line up with a lot of other experiences. For one, moments during, I believe, particularly intimate contexts with Nyx, she found herself being, terrible knows we need more cheese. I am deeply sorry. But during certain romantic contexts with Nyx, she found herself being surprisingly snarky and mean-spirited in ways that she did not think was possible for her, ways that Nyx certainly didn't mind. But what ended up happening was between that and the feeling that some especially negative and rather naysaying voice seemed to be getting particularly loud in this head, as well as his head experiencing some frequent headaches which we have begun to associate with the arrival of a new headmate thanks to Lav explaining a similar situation. All of this, combined with the sudden compulsion to create a character like Sasha Volkova, allowed us to realize something. And that thing we realized is that this character, this alternate version of Sasha, was presented to us by a new arrival. A new arrival who wished to broach the idea of being around a person or character like this by inserting the concept of an OC to Sasha that basically was just herself. And this fifth arrival is a person we have taken to naming V. Kelly assisted us with naming her, simply just because the alternate universe Sasha tends to be just referred to as Sasha V, as it's a abbreviation of her last name, while the canon Sasha is known as Sasha F. And Kelly floated the idea of simply calling this new headmate Sasha 5, is what Missy calls her. She could very well actually be the fifth Sasha if we go by chronological dates, but So, so we decided to call this new headmate V. What ended up happening was the realization that V, how about it's just V? Exactly. And Sasha also pointed out that because it's the Roman numeral for 5 and it is the 5th headmate in our system, it works. I would say it works. As well as the fact that V seemed to have a rather funny little comment on it where Sasha asked, "What is the V short for?" And V responded with, "It's short for V, spelt V-E-E." To which Sasha simply responded, "Bitch." V is a personification of particularly mean-spirited intentions, or I guess suppose not intentions, but V is essentially a side of us that has quietly been edging its way into certain conversations and contexts with different people, such as when teasing certain people with particularly mean methods, which those people in turn seem to be okay with. That we made the distinction that Sasha is not a sadist, and thusly nobody else in this system appears to be capable of such a thing. Thusly, this new person must be the source of it. So V is a particularly mean-spirited, snarky, and as Sasha liked to put it, butch dyke sleazeball, who tends to be very combative. After naming her this morning, we noticed a particularly powerful shift because while most other headmates, myself, Amber, and Mira, required a little bit of time to get used to being around people before they began to actually front, V wasted no time. V wasted no time. We realized V has come to. Wonderful. Right, Cyberpunk 2077. That also explains a lot. We realized that the character of Sasha Volkova in this AU was V effectively creating an OC and sort of putting the idea in Sasha's head as a way of, oh, it is MGS5. Apologies, my V's are a little bit out of order today, as you might imagine. So the character of Sasha Volkova was floated to us by V as a means of sort of endearing us to the idea of being around someone like her. Naturally, only Sasha and perhaps Mira had any inkling of actually wanting to be around a person like this. But as soon as Sasha realized, I would also agree with this angel. As soon as Sasha realized that we did indeed have a 5th arrival and needed to bring her in, Sasha didn't exactly spend a lot of time trying her best to take things easy. As a result, Sasha described other headmates' arrivals, such as me and Amber and Mira, as, quote, "They quietly knock on the door and we take a few days to decide if they should come in or not." V, quote, "kicked the door in." V immediately began to front for the majority of our shift today, blasting loud My Chemical Romance and proceeding to very, very violently backsass everybody, from Reki to Raz to Rachel to Nyx to Angel and Tiana. V was... I do have to admit, V is a very, very persistent figure. And granted, she does still listen to things. We have made the understanding that while V does like to get a rise out of people, and she can be quite the bitch, she also isn't a person who has an interest in actively manipulating people or being like an openly hostile abuser to people. She likes getting her sadist licks in, but her sadist licks do not involve actually being an awful person to somebody who places trust in her. She simply just likes giving people shit. And we learned this when Angel asked us how do I temp check her on this one person, to which I can actually look at it right now. I believe V would say something along the lines of, I may be a shithead, but I'm not a coward. Some of you may disagree with this, but the way it was put with V was... Here we go. I believe V was asked about how she felt about a very specific person that Sasha and Mira and I had to deal with fallout from. V said, fill me in on her. After getting information, she said, oh yeah, even goody two-shoes Mira couldn't fucking stand her. Look, I may be a shithead, but I'm not a fucking manipulator. She sounds like she'd be... I'm not reading that on stream. I may be a bitch for fun, but this person sounds like a piece of work. If you make Mira stand up, you've gotta be fucking up. So, we understand that Mira does have something approaching a line and a moral compass, which would appear to be, you don't visit unnecessary amounts of meanness and cruelty on a person who is not at least expressing interest on having it back. Rather, her understanding of what constitutes inviting it on oneself could mean anything from openly consenting to it to, quote, stepping to her. If you decide to engage with V, she considers that open season. But if you are someone who is really just a person who does not have any issue with her whatsoever and is being earnest, she considers that to be blue on blue if you were to simply just continue to make another person's life hell, not even for the sake of getting your licks in, but simply just because that's what you do and you consider a person a stepping stone. V does not consider other people to be stepping stones. She simply just believes them to be sparring partners, I suppose I could say. This is the best way to put it. So while she might like going up to people and being mean to them for fun, she still has a line. She won't do it to a random person. She won't do it to, for example, somebody who's younger and more naive than her, who is simply just trusting a person they've just met. She wouldn't do that. She would be a bit playfully mean, but not to an openly hostile way. Her sadism is primarily playful, I think is the best way to put it. It is playful, not truly, not like truly malicious. Backsass is a strong word. She tried to backsass. She's working on it. So the point of the matter is we now have a headmate who seems to have a lot of enjoyment out of being very playfully combative with people. And she definitely seems to be having a lot of fun with very specific people. She's gonna get her nose broken eventually. I don't doubt that for an instant. Too much sass. Clever. It's really clever. We appreciate, I think, V at the very least, again, she does have her limits. She does know to behave, because during today's VC, she actually very clearly stated, quote, I'm not fucking with 80, that thing fucking scares me. So take that to mean what you will. So that is one of the more major things, is that our headspace now includes 5 total people. She does know better. Exactly. I think the fact that it is playful sadism, that is meant primarily just to be combative, but she does not have truly malicious long-term intentions to hurt a person. She does not think about, oh, I think a great way to get a rise out of somebody would be to pretend to be somebody's friend and then backstab them. She thinks very much long-term. She's not a very grand scheme manipulator. She's simply just I like being a shithead. Raised the very cute visual of 80 picking V up by the scruff. She did say that. She did describe me replacing her at the helm of this body as picking her up by the scruff of her neck. Which I did threaten to do. Because she kept saying, at first, while she was fronting today, Sasha kept telling her to behave, and to know her place. V was, of course, as combative as you could expect her to be. And when I stepped in and told her she had to behave or we could simply remove her from this space, she listened. She does tend to hoist herself by her own petard, doesn't she, at times? So that is one of the major developments of today, is that we now have a fifth one. Our total of headmates is Sasha, she, her, aged 29. Her age tends to stick around the age of this physical body, if not a few years slightly younger in terms of that. Amber, who is, we believe, aged around 7. Me, and I am aged... How long has sentient life been on planet Earth? That long. And Mira, who is aged somewhere in her 40s. And now V, who... We're figuring out V. We're figuring V out. You can generally tell her because she tends to have a slightly raspier voice and a very, very, very combative personality. I think while Sasha likes to challenge herself and talk a little bit of playful shit because she thinks it's funny, and she likes being the underdog in any situation, V is easy to pick out as a certified shit starter. She is a very drop a match in the gas kind of person. And I suppose time will tell how well she's going to mesh with other people, if at all. We will see. We will see. We will see. Age, yes. Welcome to phone. Off we go to groceries. Sounds lovely. Speaking of groceries, Nyx and V went to go get groceries today at a local Spanish market that we discovered a week or so ago. A market that has a lot of Spanish products and food items and more, marginally cheaper than even the grocery store that we work at. And it's actually rather wonderful to go through, and they have such a wondrous selection of produce and meat and everything else. So we decided to get items for tacos that we would make, as well as I believe she wants to make some pork chops this week. We primarily were happy for it because Sasha wanted cojita for some of her tacos, which we couldn't find anywhere else. So now that we have some proper, now that we're going to have some proper ingredients for some really good tacos, we're excited for that. Kind of want to see what would happen if V came to a Glock party. V at a Glock party would be quite a massacre. V at a Glock party would actually be a nightmare scenario. I think friendships would be ruined. We've come to the realization that should V choose to be a long-term member of this headspace, she is going to need to curb herself. Either find a way to let herself not step in at every possible opportunity, or she's going to need to be a little bit nicer to people. And granted, all of us in this headspace have slowly begun to mellow out. Amber, who was very, very hyper and excitable, and was also extremely shy, has begun to open up to people. Amber has begun to open up to people, and thusly she is very, very nice to be around because she has enjoyed the company of others. Then I, who I was told a few times by various people that I had been a little bit unpersonable due to my bluntness, but I've been told I'm actually a very comforting presence to be around. And Mira, who consistently had very, very bad issues with boundaries to the point where she would basically be all over Sasha at any moment of the day without really asking, has gotten much better and has slipped into a rather respectful caretaker role. I have no doubt that V can be better. it will take time. Raz says, please bring V back in during another Halo Glock match so I can gloat about it. Let me drop 33 kills on V in a Slayer match and see how she feels about that. To be perfectly honest, I think Gerza Dreaming may step in. Older sibling letting you have it when you step wrong. He certainly does feel around 24 or 25, I would say, compared to Sasha being around 27 or 28. Make of that what you will. Personally, I look forward to being able to step in and put V in line. A lot of people have expressed this desire, and I am no different. Make of that what you will. This is a rather nice little campfire sit-down, isn't it? Stella, friend, it is good to see you, friend. How are you doing? Humbling V has been fun. It is rather entertaining, the way that she sometimes just kind of just gives up and just starts throwing insults. Good, just got out of class. Lovely. You kind of want to hear V talk sometime. She could probably butt in at some point on stream. I'm sure she's actually aching to do that now. V might be problematic when people want to relax. This is why we are going to have to be very stringent about this, because when people, for example, we probably aren't going to allow V access to a channel that we have specifically for close friends who need some comfort. I don't think that's a place V is going to have a good time. Or other people will if V is around. I don't think that's what she took it to mean, Angel. But generally speaking, if people are not in the best headspace, V is not going to be a terribly fun person to be around. Now, speaking of headspaces, I think it's a good opportunity now that we've gotten the slightly more lighthearted and exciting news out of the way. Or, I guess, the slightly more lighthearted and rather, I guess the word would be... I guess the word would be more personal news. We had some other news to discuss. News that is ultimately good. News that is ultimately good, but is still fairly distressing in terms of its subject matter. For those amongst us who know our good friend Tiana, you might have already been aware of this situation if you follow her Blue Sky. She's been very open about it. But on the 30th of January, our good friend Tiana was visited. She and her wife were visited by ICE, who proceeded to give them a notice that they were revoking Tiana's wife's visa and giving her a 30 days notice to vacate the country. This was not something that they were planning on lying down and taking, which we are endlessly proud of. Instead, Tiana and her wife, Lily, chose to fight this. They chose to attempt to find an immigration lawyer and do whatever they could to combat this. I believe that was... right, that was, I think, around Saturday or... no, that was around Sunday or Monday. What ended up happening then was that last Tuesday, while we were still dealing with the fallout of a very, very difficult personal problem amongst some of our closer people in our friend group that left a lot of us rather shook. Last Tuesday, things got worse. Amanda sent us a message, Tiana sent us a message saying that Lily did not come home from work that day. Sasha, who is already overwhelmed because she had spent the entire day, as she put it, burning off all of her anger about the interpersonal situation of the weekend before, became so nerve-wracked and worried for Tiana and Lily that she essentially had a breakdown that resulted in me having to take over for Stalker Tuesday that night. She does not take it well when people that she loves are in danger. It is not a thing that she copes well with. It has never been a thing she coped with. We used to have a friend we talked to fairly consistently whose parents would consistently send him off to inpatient programs whenever he wasn't doing well in college and he was starting to succumb to depression. And the level of worry that Sasha had for that friend was about the same in severity to this, if that grants any proper context. Then on stream, we received the news from Tiana of the confirmation of the worst, that she had been taken by people who were absolutely very obviously ICE. It was not good news to take, and if I had not been fronting, I think Sasha would have canceled stream in complete, in just pure emotional distress as a result of it. So we spent the better part of the last 6 days in feeling completely overwhelmed. All of us in the closer inner circles of the hate crew were trying our best to find happy things to take our mind off of it, from the Glock party to the Soma stream to the album stream. We consistently kept trying to find ways to take our minds off of it and smile, because we knew that until we received any news, good or bad, or closure of any kind, there really was nothing any of us could do until we learned some news. And until then, we all tried our best to help cheer Tiana up and keep her mind off of it. I think all of us were kind of at our breaking point. Even I have to admit, I was rather worried for everybody, especially Tiana and Amanda. Tiana. Sorry, it's been a long day today. I was particularly worried. And what ended up happening is we got news, I believe, on Friday, that Tiana was given a chance to have a call with her lawyer and a representative from the Department of Homeland Security in response to this debacle, which would be on the following Monday, almost a full week since Lily had been taken. I believe Sasha's choice words were, "They sure took their sweet fucking time, didn't they?" What ended up happening was that Tiana sat down in the morning and proceeded to be told for 40 minutes, "No, we do not know where your wife is. She is not with us. We do not have any records of a person under that name with us, and even if she was with us, we wouldn't know where she is." Which is probably one of the worst things you could possibly tell a person whose wife has been taken from them, completely under their nose while she was at work. Obviously, I think it goes to show, Tiana did not handle this well. Sasha did not handle this well. Ellie, Angel, Raz. I don't think there was a single person in our circle who was made aware of this development that did take it well. Sasha was absolutely, completely belligerent with anger. She went through the motions of becoming impossibly upset to succumbing to complete despair and feeling like there was no way she could possibly continue to have hope. To the point where she effectively finally had the realization where she accepted that she was trying too hard to shoulder the burden of hurt and emotions of other people, and her efforts of trying to be there for people when they needed comfort resulted in her effectively drying herself of blood. It was heavy. It was heavy, and even I was genuinely... I cannot say I was thinking very kind thoughts, is all I'm going to say about the matter. And we were all extraordinarily upset when we learned of this. What ended up happening was Sasha came home to take a shower. In the shower, she gets a notification from Tiana. This was yesterday at around 5 p.m. Yesterday, Sasha gets a notification from Tiana. It is a message that starts off with Sasha's name just being written in all caps. Sasha stated she had a feeling what this message was, but decided to finish her shower before even thinking about unpacking it, which ended up being the correct possibility, because as soon as she finished her shower, and while the song Our Lady Hope by Tucker Theodore was playing, she read the message and confirmed that Lily had indeed been deported. She had touched down in Helsinki with her family and was home, bruised, malnourished, and dehydrated, but alive. And considering what people say about being in ICE captivity, fairly lucky, if I'm being blunt. We are all very upset that she ended up getting sent home anyway. She is at least with her family, but we are very upset that she was still sent out of the country without the 30 days of proper notice. Although, given how this particular branch of our government appears to work, I find it difficult to be surprised that they refuse to abide by their own rulings. But there were a lot of theories that Sasha had in regards to this. Sasha and Nyx had a fairly consistent understanding of the situation, in that it is ICE, due to being understaffed and universally reviled by the entire country, is not very good at keeping records or being internally consistent about how they do things. And as a result, it was likely that either the people who took Lily last Tuesday simply did not know she had already been given a notice, and simply just took somebody who seemed like a possible target, or one of Sasha's other theories was that the motion to move towards a legal battle resulted in them feeling like they simply just had to accelerate their process and just go for it as soon as there was an opportunity. Neither of these really do much good for anybody to pontificate on. Ultimately, it comes down to the situation of there is a sector of our government that is going out of its way to be exceptionally cruel to completely innocent people. And there is really not much more minutia that needs to be derived from any of this. And when Tiana told us the news on the morning of Monday that the call did not yield much fruit, and instead actually was about as bad as you could have expected it, the telling of, we don't have anybody by this person's name in our records, if we did, we wouldn't know where she was, brought a fair amount of scary and intrusive thoughts to Sasha in terms of what could have happened. She feared the worst, and she did not think there was any possibility of hope yielding anything to anybody. But she did try to offer something to Tiana, which was, what if she's already been released and she's not in their records anymore, thusly, when you talked to them today, they simply didn't have her and thusly couldn't say anything. She didn't expect to be correct to a degree, because it turns out that was almost exactly certainly what had happened. That Lily had been flown out that day, and as a result of this, she was not in their records and nobody was actually paying attention to anything anymore. As a result, when Tiana went to go call them, they simply told her, we don't know if we have this person, we don't have anybody like her in our records. The implication to be derived from this is that as soon as a person is removed from any of ICE's detaining facilities, if they even keep records to begin with, which I strongly do not believe, if they did, this seems to imply that as soon as a person is removed from their captivity, records proving that they were ever there seem to be expunged, which is troubling. Greatly troubling in terms of what that means for how they operate, I would argue. I think it is greatly troubling. But the more important matters to focus on are the more hopeful ones. For those who've been truly devoured, keep planting flowers. You are never invisible to me. As a result, I think it is best to focus on the good of the scenario, which is that Lily is alive, considering the scenarios heard of from ICE captivity. Possibly had it about as well as it could have possibly been. I would say very lucky, and we are still unimaginably upset that she was hurt, mistreated, and shipped out of the country so thoughtlessly and cruelly, but she is alive, and she is okay now, which there's a lot of words on this. And on top of that, Tiana is doing everything she can with her immigration lawyer to bring this case before a judge and say, my wife's visa was unfairly canceled without the ability for appeal, with absolutely zero reasoning. She has been an American citizen, paying taxes and living here on a legal visa that has been legally maintained for over 2 decades. You cannot do this. We have heard many, many cases about ICE deportations being thrown out as a result of the fact that they are literally based on absolutely zero-factor legal reasoning, because unlike your typical... Sasha's egging me on to say a statement, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say it. She's really, really, really giving me that grin. Unlike pussies in tactical gear, judges actually understand the law to some degree, oftentimes to a draconic degree, but to a degree. Thusly, many of these cases do tend to get thrown out. There is hope. There is hope. As a result, one can only hope that this bears fruit and she is able to be brought back to Tiana. Until then, her being home safe with her family and relatively in good standing, I think is the best outcome we could have hoped for. Raz said Elizabeth was doing... The fact that being white and upper middle class doesn't protect you anymore is a startling escalation. Absolutely. Absolutely. It really does show that they simply just go after anybody that they perceive to be an easy target, regardless of what your actual demographic is. It's truly disgusting. And we have a lot of choice words for it. But unfortunately, we are but a rat in the cage of Twitch TOS. But Raz said Elizabeth was doing a lot to front and present a strong supportive face to all of our friends, but when I found this out, it was... Indeed. Sasha sent a 4-minute long voice message to Amanda because she was crying so much that it was making it difficult to type on her phone screen. But she described the fact that she was still going through the motions of processing how completely hopeless everything felt earlier that day. That when she got the news that, yes, Lily is alive, yes, she is home safe with her family, didn't parse as real for several minutes when she read it. I think the sleep deprivation, because she didn't sleep terribly well that night, because despite my best efforts to actually send her to bed at a decent time, she has not been listening to me. Did not help. Appreciate you all being here, by the way. I realize walking alone at night while presenting hard femme is dangerous. Absolutely. It is why, even when we walk to work in the mornings, we will still insist that Nyx picks us up when she's coming home from work that evening. Perhaps in the neighborhood that we used to live in, that Sasha consistently describes as bougie, that was a possibility. She could get away with going out for a walk around her neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the morning and be fine. Here things are not quite so simple. We are here with you, Angel, and we're honestly very proud of you. But yes, Sasha took a decent amount of time to properly process the news, but when she did, she noted the fact that her shoulders dropped so hard it felt like she had been holding up the weight of the world on them. I believe she described it to Tiana as feeling as though After a good week of being told that she or somebody she loved had only a couple of days to live, she had just been told out of nowhere that actually that would not prove to be true. Simply too traumatized to walk alone at night anymore, which sucks as I like my night walks. Given the experiences that you've lived through, I don't think I could blame you for that. I don't find that to be a matter... Obviously, this isn't a thing that you need to be told, as it's not a stance that anybody has told you today, but in case, we find that to simply be a matter of realism, a matter of experience, a matter of, well, process of elimination shows that whenever I do this, this thing happens. Therefore, it feels fairly understandable to say, well, considering every time I do this, this thing happens, I will simply choose to not do this. I don't think we could blame you. But we are sorry that it took a relatively pleasing, I've broken my legs. We are sorry that it took a relatively pleasing, pastime from you, but... well, these things happen. These things happen. These things happen. But the point is, the fact that self-defense is basically illegal in Canada baffles and angers me. Absolutely. Absolutely. You will have no disagreement from me on this matter. The point of the matter is, there is hope. There was proof of the power in hope. The way Sasha described it as well was that the week leading up to this, if we had simply gotten news of any kind, it would have made it easier. If it was simply, oh, you know, Lily has been detained and she was awaiting deportation on this date, and until then she is here. That is one thing. That is still horrible, but it is concrete information. The thing that made it so agonizing, as Sasha put it, was the lack of clarity and the lack of closure. The situation of she was simply there and then she was gone, and then the realization that we didn't know anything and nobody was telling us anything. Of she could be detained, she could have already been deported, or there could be much worse things that could have happened and we would not know anything. And the fact that we did not know anything, and the entire week leading up to this was not just a week trying to cope with what we already knew. It was a week coping with what we already knew and trying to discern the unknown. And this, I don't think it would be fair. I don't think it would be fair to lie and say that all of us in the hate crew were particularly on edge at this moment. Sasha had grown very short-fused, tired, and easily upset. Tiana was so emotionally overwhelmed and completely exhausted that she could do nothing but sleep and barely eat for days and days and days on end. Angel, who was already dealing with a lot of other things between her recent breakup and other situations regarding the stress of moving into a new house that she had to fix up to be livable to her and Missy, was also very, very much at the end of her rope in terms of her energy. We're very happy you're home safe, by the way, Angel. Very good timing. Ellie was also dealing with a lot of things that were troubling her a fair bit. All of us were effectively very, very short-fused and very much just, at the end of all things, hoping for good news. And until we got any of it, we were all holding our breaths and our lungs were beginning to burn as we sat there wondering if we would ever get to exhale again. That was how it felt. And learning, even though the news was bittersweet, that she had been sent home to her family overseas, and had still been treated inhumanely. The news that she was alive and safe with her family was enough to buy back some joy. And for now, it is enough, until we can hope for... I discovered a lot of new types of anger in the past couple weeks. Indeed, I think part of what made a very certain particularly difficult and I suppose the word would be like a very particularly difficult to manage situation with a person who hurt a great many of us in the past week or two, was the fact that this person did that to us while we were already trying to be there for Amanda when all of this began, is what made it so difficult. And knowing now that both of these scenarios are behind us and the healing can begin here does help. Things are still difficult and scary, but there is hope. As Tiana put it, quoting the song Airfield by Enter Shikari, which we have been told she has been listening to consistently lately, which Sasha is very happy to hear. To quote that song, through adversity, hope must not become a casualty. Or the segment that Sasha very much enjoys quoting being, when the wind's against you, remember this insight. That's the optimal condition for birds to take flight. Now the wind's against you, don't give up the fight. Emotionally and physically stun-locked by both of those situations at once. Absolutely. It really did feel like just a situation of, why are both of these things happening? Obviously, one of them was primarily the result. Oh, welcome back, Stella. It's good to see you. Welcome back, friend. And it's good to see you as well, Estelle. We all felt very helpless, indeed. I think that was the part that made Sasha the angriest, was the feeling of absolute powerlessness. That nothing she did seemed to help. That trying her best to be there to help Tiana through it, only really put bandages on puncture wounds. On exit wounds, rather. They put bandages on exit wounds, and those bandages helped to stem the bleeding, but they did not pull the bullets out. And so instead, Sasha's main method of trying to be there for another person didn't seem to be helping because it was only really a temporary, method of distraction. Nothing she could do seemed to be able to actually help. She could not give money to help with the legal case because the legal case was frozen due to the kidnapping. She could not get closure for Tiana due to the fact that closure was entirely at the mercy of an incredibly incompetent, careless, and inhumane governmental institution, of which none of us were its allies. All of us felt impossibly helpless and felt like there was nothing we could do to help or make this better. We were simply at the mercy of whoever on a position of power decided when we were deserving of having closure. And that was made it all so difficult. There are some things I don't know how to do over a chat room. Some of these things need physical presence and reassurance. I would agree. Had we been in a real IRL friendship with Amanda where we lived close enough together, this would have been a situation in which Sasha would have offered to drop food off for her, take her out of the house and go to different functions and outings and find ways to give her some breathing room and buy her back some energy just to help this be a little bit manageable. Instead, we couldn't do that. All we could do was just try our best to be there for her while we were here. And I think it was that fact that brings me to one of the other scenarios that Sasha was dealing with this week, which was something that Kelly and Angel and Raz and Amanda and many other friends had to tell her yesterday, which was, you are doing too much. It's a thing I've been telling her myself, and I think she has now finally begun to agree. The scenario that she described as, if I cannot give anything physically, and either monetarily or with my own involvement help make things better for people that I love, I instead feel like I must give all emotionally. She feels as though if people she loves are struggling or suffering, if she cannot actually have a meaningful hand in preventing or stopping that halfway through, Sasha feels like she has to just basically be at a person's beck and call in any scenario To put it simply, she's deathly afraid of being that one person who's not there for someone in their time of need. And considering that she was discussing Francis today, I think I can understand where this mentality stems from. It stems from feeling like there were instances where she wasn't there for a person who needed it, and this carelessness on her part had grave consequences. Thusly, as a result, whenever somebody she loves is struggling, she feels like she must be there. If someone she loves has a particularly upset status, she will check in on them constantly and take personal note of their emotional state and offer as much help as she could. Even if she begins doing this to almost upwards of 10 people a day, of checking on this person, they're not doing well, checking on this person, they're not doing well, and constantly keeping tabs on everybody's emotional state and constantly offering her care and support and comfort to them at all hours of the day, to the point where she becomes completely emotionally overwhelmed, and she does not have anything she can give herself, because she believes that the only way she can repent for not being able to meaningfully improve another person's dire situation is that she must give everything emotionally. I believe she described it as martyring herself. She described it as, if I feel like I can't help, then I just begin to martyr myself and I will light myself aflame to keep people around me warm. She will open her veins so that they can drink. And as a result, it leads to her having these grandiose meltdowns where she begins to fall apart very, very openly, beating herself up, getting upset, lashing out, falling apart in these little grand mal cycles, and eventually ending up on the point of, because all of these little meltdowns are triggered by something bad happening to a loved one, because these happen whenever a loved one is in extreme distress, whenever she caves in from feeling like she can't do enough to help, or realizing that she is burning herself out trying to comfort far too many other people at a time when she is already out of energy herself. Because these meltdowns tend to happen when triggered by another person's distress, she immediately enters a self-loathing cycle of feeling like she is doing a disservice to that person who is in distress, saying, I'm so sorry for taking up your time when you need it more. I'm so sorry for being a person who is taking up your support and taking it away from somebody who needs it. Or I'm so sorry for putting my problems onto you when you're the one who's going through something worse right now. She enters these self-destructive little cycles of feeling like she must martyr herself, and when she realizes that martyring herself is having a negative effect on her, she begins to self-loathe and say, I'm so sorry I'm hurting all of you when you need comfort, and I am not being the person you need me to be. I am not being that stalwart symbol of hope, of strength, of guidance. I am instead burning myself alive. Kelly said, sometimes the best thing is just be around someone, don't even have to say anything. This, we agree with. Tiana said, and then you and I said that's not healthy. I said, and I quote, it hurts me to see you cleanse yourself to the bone to help others. I would agree. I believe it to be tantamount to self-harm, to martyr yourself to such an extreme extent that you are having grandiose meltdowns, where you begin to feel like you are completely worthless as a person because you cannot bring meaningful end to another person's suffering, and feeling like you need to burn yourself alive to keep them warm. Raz put, Elizabeth said something along the lines of, yes, I believe this is fairly obviously self-destructive, you are abusing yourself. Tiana said, I never have and never will feel that way about you, you just being my friend is enough. We appreciate that. Also had a similar experience around that time and felt terrible. This is true. This is true. We do know that the last time, the last stream that I put on last week, you also were fairly worried for a loved one. And following that up, there was an administrative decision we had to make that made you feel fairly I believe the word, you were rather feeling guilty and upset about things, and you were worried that we all hated you, when in reality, we simply were just making sure to hold you accountable to something. We appreciated your understanding and being okay with us doing that. It is good to see you as well, Lady Mischief. I hope you're doing well tonight. Sometimes when Angel and I are both in dire straits, we'll simply be sad together, and often that can be plenty soothing. Nyx and us have done that a fair amount of times. There have been moments where Sasha will often offer lots and lots of affection, and usually that helps with Nyx. But a fairly big part of it is that whenever anybody in this body is struggling, and Sasha and Nyx is also struggling, we will simply just hold each other. Hold each other and wait. And just hold each other until things get better. That's wonderful to hear, Missy. And we're happy to have you back in the server, Ari. We appreciate your understanding, and we really do hope things get better in your personal situations. Yana said both Grace and Lily did that with me. I see. I see. Sasha has promised she's going to do her best not to martyr herself. And also, by the way, thank you for the canteen sip. Allow me to... Nyx got us multiple different drink tumblers, by the way. Nyx purchased a drink tumbler for me and for Mira from her job. They're both different kinds, and the different designs and patterns on the cup, as well as the different functions they serve, were the primary inspiration for why she got a different one for each of us, and I have to admit that made me smile. So I'm drinking water out of the drink tumbler that Nyx got for me. That's what made all this so hard, is that I'm a very physical person, and not having that compounded everything. I cannot imagine. There are a lot of things I can't imagine, and a lot of things I have experienced. I've been around for a very long time. And yet, I don't think I can possibly envision what going through what you went through could possibly be like. We talked a lot on Sunday about how going through adversity and being told that you're brave or that you're strong feels almost condescending. Almost condescending when it is you are so very brave for managing this, but in actuality you don't want to have to be brave. You don't want to have to be strong. Just been taking all this in while painting, and that's a lot. Please look after yourselves. Kelly said, I also can't help but at least lend an ear, set aside time for people in crisis, even if I already have a lot on my plate, because a lot of my life I was wishing for someone like that to listen and help me. Absolutely. Absolutely. We are happy you're doing better now, Tiana. We are unimaginably happy, and knowing that things are better now than they were and can continue trending upwards as long as we keep the pressure on means the world. But Kelly, we understand this to the nth degree. I think that was what made the events of 2 weeks ago so brutally bitter, was that a person took advantage of a lot of our desires to try and be there for other people, and did not take into account that we were already being burnt out by what Tiana was going through, and so effectively offloaded their suffering onto us without even asking if it was okay. I think that was what made it all so bitter. There's a story Sasha often likes to tell. I agree with Tiana. All we stand to lose is our chains. There is a story that Sasha oft likes to tell. She's told it to a great many friends in our community as part of the reason why she persists in being the type of community leader that she does. She often tells a story of when she was coming home from a rather late evening walk, and a lot of people who know us well know that whenever Sasha goes on her late evening walks generally speaking, it is because you can expect her to be in a very distraught state when she comes home. Because she often tends to insist on listening to music that is not particularly kind to the soul. Certain unkind thoughts visit her during these walks. And, for example, one of these walks was a walk so distressing that it resulted in Amber making herself known. But she came home from an evening walk, distressed, hurt, feeling like there wasn't much to cling on to. She joined a private VC in her friend Rocco's server. Rocco proceeded to join VC while he was taking a bath. And Sasha held on to that memory and continues to hold on to that memory of her sitting in the voice channel and just talking about her feelings and trying to get a better grasp on how she understood things. And Rocco mainly listening, offering sage little, you know, I suppose the word would be additions, but primarily focusing on simply being an ear that she needed, and sometimes offering his own little perspective on things when he could, through the echo of his phone in the bathroom and the sounds of the water. She described it as a Jeffrey Lebowski moment of her being in a really bad place and somebody else to the point of being there for her while he was literally taking a bath doing it to make sure she was going to be okay. A lot of what she does when it comes to how she handles the PCHC is trying to amplify the ways that Rocco's community made her feel safe and welcomed and understood in times of need. She wants to be a community leader that takes personal interest in other people's affairs. Well, takes personal interest in other people's affairs sounds fairly foreboding, but she takes personal interest in the well-being of her people. If her friends are struggling, she will go out of her way to check in on them and make sure that they're going to be okay. If her friends are happy, she makes it clear that she is happy for them. Because of this, I believe, is one of the biggest contributors to her martyring herself, is that she does not feel good when people in her community are struggling and not feeling well. So as a result, she tries to balance the emotional states of many people on her words alone. If one person is having a bad day because their shift didn't go terribly well, or a certain headmate is especially upset, another is very upset because of something they read on the internet today. A third one had some very life-shattering news relating to the health of a relative. These all seem like fairly singular situations that can get better within the span of 24 hours. But the primary issue is that when you are taking all of them on one by one, and when we have discussed earlier that Sasha is a person who continues to get physically overwhelmed when she has a lot of information to manage all at once and she is balancing multiple conversations with a person. The existing stress of having to manage conversations and information with multiple people at once is exponentially exacerbated when those conversations are about those people being in not good emotional headspaces. It begins to become quite the walls closing in scenario for Sasha. It becomes quite the walls closing in scenario, and she begins to feel like there is no way she can feasibly surmount any of this, and she just keeps on taking on more and more suffering from other people. She has always wanted to embody a line from an Enter Shikari song, that song being Dear Future Historians, and that line being at the end of "Put your weight on my shoulders." She wants to be the kind of person that can carry everybody else's weight. If she viewed herself as, quote, being like Vestal in that she chooses not to give what others can, and in that way she is selfish. Because she is not able to help people monetarily, or at least a lot of times she has to make the call not to in order to keep herself afloat. And because a lot of other things that she could do, she does not have the energy to be able to do, she at least feels like she can make some difference by helping everybody shoulder the weight of their hurt. But when all of it begins to add up, when she is dealing with 5, 6, 7, sometimes upwards of 10 people, all experiencing their own catastrophic little degrees of hurt, and she's going out of her way to manage and take on all of it with them, personally walking multiple people through catastrophes and always being there to try and be a voice of help, staying up until 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. at latest to try to help a person out of a depressive spiral, doing many, many things that cause her to be bereft of sleep, to be completely either malnourished or sleep deprived, and having absolutely zero social energy because she is effectively holding multiple people up above the abyss and preventing them from falling in, or at least she views herself as being the thing that's preventing them from falling into the abyss. But in actuality, many of these people will be okay if they have a day where they don't get checked in by her, and they either have their own support networks or they can find a way to manage on their own. She insists on taking personal interest in trying to help shoulder these things because she believes that is her purpose. She constantly says that she has no reason to exist if she cannot be kind. And as a result, she goes far too out of her way to be kind, to the point where she, again, lights herself ablaze to keep other people warm. And these people consistently tell her, Sasha, we will be okay, and you don't have to fret about us. But she feels like she must fret, because if she cannot or will not give what others can, she must give what they can't, which is all of her soul. And it clearly burns her out to do it. Being kind includes being kind to yourself, indeed, and I think this is a good way of looking at it. Ziggy says, my DMs are open to anyone in the PCHC. I may not be able to relate to everything, but I can at least hear people out and let them vent. This is true, and I believe this is a thing that Sasha needs to learn, is that considering a major aspect of how she wants the PCHC to be, is to be a place where everyone feels like they support each other. She wants the PCHC to be this unified network of tight-knit people who are all there for each other when they need them, when they need each other. We're all there for each other to hold each other up and support each other and comfort each other in times of great distress. She wants the hate crew to be almost like a sort of combination of a creative scene and a support group all in one, which I think is an admirable goal. But it is difficult to allow her people an opportunity to support each other if she is insisting on being the one supporting everybody herself. Nobody can lift the burdens of multiple people no matter how much they want to. And part of this is that Sasha feels especially callous if she has to tell a person, I'm sorry, I can't help. The afternoon when Tiana told us, I'm really worried, Lily didn't come home from work today, Sasha broke down, because she realized that was her tipping point. And even when she was well within her rights to say, I'm sorry, I am overwhelmed at work, and a lot of other things are absolutely bringing me to the ground right now. Even though she had every right to say it, and when she did, Tiana was 100% understanding of her. She felt awful when she said, I am sorry, I am overwhelmed and cannot help. He felt awful for this. But in actuality, if she wants this community to truly feel like a community where everyone is there for each other, she needs to give them the chance to be there for each other. And through that unity and through that mutual support for everybody, this goal can truly be realized. Saying no to that is indeed very difficult. So it really does come down to that. It really does just kind of come down to the situation of you need to learn to be kinder to yourself, and you need to learn to say no. And so part of what she is going to do now is she is going to have to be okay with, if she is already helping another person and shouldering another person's boundaries, I think she will allow herself a variable amount of people she can talk through things per day. And I'm going to help her ensure that it is a very low number. It will not be a rigid number, but there will have to be a limit she will have to place on herself of this is how much I can offer to people a day. This is how much of my ears I can give. This is how much blood I can let out. This is how much I can light myself ablaze. She has to limit this. She has to limit how much she insists on giving. So she will have to learn to limit that. And the most difficult part of that will be when she has already reached her limit, and she has already reached her variable limit of this is how much I can help people through today. She's going to have to learn to say, no, I can't do this today. I cannot help. Tomorrow, perhaps. I will be here. I think the combination of words that has proven to be most destructive to Sasha's well-being, while conversely being words that she feels to be the most important sentence in her lexicon, are, let me know if there's anything I can do for you. If there is anything I can do for you, let me know. And she is going to have to learn to not say that every single time. She's going to have to learn to say, either simply not respond to a DM, or simply say, I'm sorry, I don't have the bandwidth to help right now. And I will get back to you as soon as I do. You will have to learn to say that. It will be difficult, but I have confidence in her. And she is going to have to learn to say no and learn to have a limit. And part of this is she is going to have to learn to let the hate crew help itself. A thing Sasha was so adamant about in January was she feels like the Ruby to Cherry of VTubers. That she built something that she is told has saved lives, and yet she ends up responding to these praises and thanks with the phrase, when is it going to save mine? Of, I almost died making this shit happen. And to that degree, she's going to have to, for her own safety, stop trying to be the one who is single-handedly holding up the emotional state of every single individual in the hate crew. She is going to have to simply say, I cannot do this. And through that, it will allow the members of the crew to become stronger and much more close with each other, because they will have the ability to fall on each other, because Sasha will not be the one trying to take all of their hurt onto herself at all times. If she's Ruby, I'm happy to be Scrim. Sasha would only be happy being Ruby if you were her Scrim, Angel. You cannot pour from a broken cup. Without community, we cannot survive. Community cannot survive if it relies on one person to hold it together. And Nyx told us a similar thing yesterday, of Sasha cannot just... a community that entirely relies on its leader for support is less a community and closer to a cult. And as much as Sasha kind of smiled at the idea of being a sort of wholesome self-help and self-empowerment cult leader, as much as she smiled at that idea in a sort of morbid way, she agreed that that is not what she wants this to be, and it must not be that. To that end, she has to learn to let the hate crew help itself. She does still want to be the type of community leader that cares, because ultimately, a big thing that made a lot of this hurt so much worse was that this person who took advantage of all of us and used us all as a trauma dumping ground and tried to offload their hurt onto all of us while we were trying to be there for Tiana. This person repeatedly referred to Sasha as a piece of shit who slammed their head into the wall. when Sasha pointed out her boundaries and said, "I cannot help. I am not the person to come to about this. I am sorry, and I feel used for the fact that you threw all of this at me without my consent or without warning me." And for this boundary setting, she was told that she was a piece of shit who drove a stake through someone's heart. And that made it very difficult for her to be able to say, "I cannot help," or "I don't know if I can do this." She still wants to be better than what she considers most VTuber community leaders to be, which is a person who... She considers most VTuber community leaders to be very, very careless, to be people who view all interpersonal situations as purely moderation decisions, cold, hard decisions of, do we talk to this person or do we let them tough it out kind of thing. Instead, she wants to be a person who makes everybody feel like they matter to her and to the rest of the community. She's so used to the way that the hate crew used to be before it was filled with people who were truly about what she is about. When it was just kind of her cribbing her older friend groups for people who wanted to be involved in the Sasha server. That it was difficult for her to feel like she was surrounded by people who were at all interested in what kind of culture she wanted to propagate. And as a result, she was very used to the idea that she had to personally always be the one doing it. If I do not show that I am taking interest in these people personally, nobody else in this community will feel like they should take interest in these people personally. We built this shit from nothing and now it's something beautiful. This is something we are trying to teach Ben. You can't be there for everyone. And you can be there for someone if you can be there for yourself. Help when you can, but don't overextend. To this end, Sasha will do her best to tighten her allowance of how many people she can take on per day, and learn to say no. And possibly even learn to encourage members of her community to fall into one another. They are already doing that. We seem to be getting a fair bit of evidence in the chat that a fair amount of people in our community have already begun reaching out to each other when they need help, rather than simply falling on just Sasha. There's a line that Sasha has been thinking about a lot. There's a Belgian hardcore punk band that Sasha is very, very fond of. They're called Nasty. Well, they're from Germany, but they currently live in Belgium because they had to flee the country of Germany due to their involvement in, I believe, as Sasha put it, gang shit. Nasty is a band that Sasha is very, very... she identifies very heavily with their messages, especially their song Zero Tolerance, which is an anti-fascist anthem, which the chorus literally says, "Not 1 inch, zero tolerance, always anti-fascist." Their logo tends to consistently incorporate the anarchist Circle A logo for this exact reason. Nasty are a very, very, as she would put it, based band. But she currently has a snapback hat she got from them around, I believe, 2018, 2019, back when she was very, very into wearing snapbacks. A aspect of her faction that once she began to transition, she no longer was able to look at with the same degree of passion. But she does still look very fondly at that Tragedy Will Find Us 5-panel hat that Brendan Murphy signed sitting on her bookshelf. She does still look very fondly at that Acacia Strain Bastard Crew snapback that she got absolutely doused in cheap beer at High Caliber 2018. To that end, her love for this band and her previous love of this form of clothing, led her to have a hat that essentially became the basis for much of her philosophy around being a community leader, around being a member or spearhead of any kind of culture. Noted social media shitposter Brendan Murphy. Sasha has talked very much about what kinds of things Brendan Murphy posts. If he finds his way to Blue Sky, I think Sasha would be very, very happy to see him. But to this end, Sasha's love of this band called Nasty and her enjoyment of snapbacks as a form of merchandising led her to find a snapback with a piece of a sort of statement on it that has become the basis of much of her philosophy around being a content creator, a community leader, a spearhead of a movement. She truly does not like to call the Pripyat City Hate Crew a fan base or even a community. She prefers to call it a scene or a culture. She prefers to call it those things. Scene is her personal favorite, but this snapback she has is from the band Nasty, and it has their logo obviously across the front of it. Underneath the brim, I believe it says Chaos Division in white on green. But the sort of little, like brand seal that would normally be a holographic sticker atop the brim, has a gold on black anarchist logo. And around this logo reads the text, "Got love for each other, 'cause this world got none." That has been the basis for her entire philosophy around being a community spearhead. I believe if you ever asked her to boil down how she wants the Pripyat City Hate Crew to be, how she leads it, why she leads it the way she does, and why she insists on it being equally a support group as much as it is a creative scene, she would, if you asked her to boil down her philosophy around all of this to a single sentence, you can put a decent amount of money down on the likelihood that she will simply quote what she has on that hat. Got love for each other, because this world got none. I think that's a fairly apt way of putting it, I think, is that he insists on having a community, a scene, a space, where the entire purpose of it is that everyone is here for each other and fighting for each other, because we cannot trust the world at large to fight for us. I think we should really do a listening party for one of Nasty's albums at some point. Either Religion, Love, or Shaka would be a good idea. That would be a very nice time. They're really a spectacularly talented band. We're also a fairly big fan of Menace and Heartbreak Criminals as well. I have to get that hat because that's the most Anglecore hat I've ever seen. If you would like, Angel, send Sasha a message and prompt her to post pictures of it in the media share channel. I think she will take any opportunity to do that once she is fronting again. We would get on the webcam to show it off, but I am not terribly interested in showing myself visually. And Sasha wants to save a webcam stream for her streamversary. She has some very, very interesting ideas regarding that. Here we go. This is better. We've been doing the parkour thing, which is interesting because I think it's mostly the fact that Sasha is sitting here with me that seems to be influencing it a fair bit. You can tell that Sasha is having a fair amount of influence on what we're doing because she's gonna call it here. You have a dentist appointment at 8 in the morning tomorrow. Not a worry. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Tiana. You're welcome. And thank you so much for all you do for us and for being an absolute symbol of hope. You are everything that we stand for personified. I do not consider it to be hyperbolic to say that you are one of the best of us. And I think everybody else would agree. Sleep well. Trying your best is the best you can do. That's why it's the best. Ouch. looks over at all of the cups, the coffee cups that Sasha has, that all read trying my best. Boy, that's my line. With all of this having been discussed, it's nice to just take a deep breath in and out. Sunday was an absolutely lovely little album stream. We had a good time with so many people pulling up and joining us for it. Sasha had an absolutely wonderful time discussing music with Tiana and Angel. She does still want to do a follow-up stream for their honorable mentions, and we will plan that. If we have any energy on Thursday night, we may actually do that then, since we called that evening off to just be a night that we're spending time doing some cleaning, but we may end up doing a follow-up stream for that. With that being said, how is everybody else doing tonight? It's been a hell of a week, hasn't it? Especially for us in the Hate Crew. We've been through a lot, and we've experienced and seen a lot of things that were horrible start and end, and a lot of things that were good start. Tell me all about how you're doing this evening, please. Enough about me. Been snoozing a lot today. We would be doing that ourselves if we had an opportunity. Today was a fairly busy day at work, which I suppose we should expect, but at least now it's over. Tomorrow we have a 10 to 4? 10 to 4. So, it's going to be a fairly long one tomorrow, but we will manage. We will manage. Injection night went poorly. We did see this, yes. Otherwise, you've not done a whole lot today. It either is so much cheese you need to grate. Question. Is there a specific functional reason you didn't get pre-shredded? My body knows when I work, so I'm really tired in the day approaching it. We would agree. A big part of why we couldn't stand the later night shifts, like the 5 p.m. to midnight streams, or the 5 p.m. to midnight shifts that we used to have in our jobs delivery department, came down to the fact that you never really had enough time in the morning to get things done. And instead you would just spend hours just kind of sitting around doing nothing, waiting for your shift, and you never ever feel good going into a shift. The longer you have time to sort of like agonize over the day without actually having the time to keep yourself busy, it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. So we understand you. We understand you. Had to take my cat to the vet for a checkup super early today, and he decided to wake me up at 2 a.m. and not let me sleep till 3. Was about an hour late, but everything turned out fine. That's good, at least. I'm very happy that things turned out as best as they could have. I owe Ari a stretch, so if you'll give me a moment, please, I will be right back with you.
Оце я задовбався сьогодні.
man. I'm Skinny Pete.
Is that Skinny Pete? I found a couple people who want to go airsofting with me on Sunday. That does sound very interesting. We do really wish we had the time and ability and investment to be able to do airsoft. Sasha expressed interest in that, but she also admitted airsoft is merely a means for cosplay for her, and as thus she doesn't really think she could ever actually play the sport for real. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think I can blame her. I don't think I can blame her. Missy. Sasha, who, of course, is sitting next to me this entire time.
Зараз уже й не знаю, для чого на велику повертатися.
Sasha, who has been sitting with me this entire time, wants to read out that message you posted in a certain way. Oh boy! I'm so hungry, I could eat pepper jack. My boy, this mold is what all true heroes strive for. Sorry. She seemed to really enjoy that. Terribly sorry about your pepper jack, though, Angel. You'd kind of like to get back into it, but it's a cosplay vector. The only reason Sasha owns airsoft is because she wants stuff that is there for cosplay, but she also likes them to be functional because half of the cosplay for her is being able to actually, like, interact with the weaponry, and thusly, the fun of it is that if she wants to just do target practice with Missy, she could. She doesn't, but if she wanted to, she could. And I think that's an important distinction. It's why she never buys boneyard or like wax-filled weaponry. She always goes for the most accurate replicas she can that are still only replicas and not real ones. She does, however, admit that if she ever goes to a convention, she is going to have to get completely non-functional ones to comply with convention safety standards anyway. Which is unfortunate, but it is fair. Back when we still had plans to go to Colossal Con in 2023 over in Michigan, what she originally planned to do is she was going to order a brand new non-functional variant of Missy to be delivered to a friend of ours who actually lived within driving distance of the convention center. She was going to have that non-functional and effectively functionless variant of Missy shipped to our friend Ronnie. He was then going to hand it off to us in the parking lot of the convention, almost like some kind of weird cosplay arm deal. She was, of course, going to bring all of Missy's attachments with her. So, she was going to meet up in the parking lot of Colossal Con in full gear and effectively take the variant of Missy from our friend Ronnie out of his trunk and then bring it into the convention. She was then going to most likely let him keep it for whatever purpose he wanted, given that she would not likely be able to bring it with her on a train or a plane. So the general purpose behind this was to avoid having to bring an airsoft tool through any type of mass transportation security, because that is a recipe for disaster. And even if she openly stated it is a toy, it is non-functional, and I'm telling you now, you don't want to do that. So instead, she was effectively going to go by mercenary rules of buying another one and having it shipped to her location she was going to go to, and then leaving it there, to avoid having to bring it back with her across any transportation method. Which is interesting. Is interesting. But it is funny. When that convention did not end up being plans we could follow up on, due to a certain train derailment that made it very, very difficult to be in that area, and all of us chose to cancel on our plans, that never ended up happening. But it is still funny. It is still funny, isn't it? Sasha does still want to get another airsoft weapon. Most likely, she expressed interest in a pump shotgun at some point. Perhaps a Remington 870? Maybe. This is a lovely little tune we're hearing. I'm not doing any cloning, but the one from Heat is pretty cool looking, and I want an AR platform that can pass as that. I see. A lot of these words are, I admit, are words that I don't know, and due to the fact that weaponry as a topic is a thing that we only really have interest in due to video games and some degrees of cosplay, it feels almost harsh to say that we don't have a lot of interest in knowing what these words mean. But I think I understand. How interested would the Hate Crew be in seeing a Sasha V cosplay? I wonder. I wonder. Heat is a movie. We have actually been meaning to sit down and watch Heat, primarily because Sasha is a big enough Al Pacino fan that her Discord entrance sound, her Discord voice channel entrance sound is this. Where are you? Sasha loves her Al Pacino, and that's a fair enough symptom of it. But that's also her producer tag, by the way. You can tell you're listening to a beat produced by Too Much Sasha because it has.
А мама казала, ходи до музикалки. Зараз би такі сюїти на гітарі мужикам лабали.
That would be cool. Raz, I am sensing there is much, much more you wanted to type and you had to restrain yourself. But we do want to watch Heat, primarily because Sasha is a very big fan of its Brian Eno-produced soundtrack. Ari, are you referring to the part where he says, "Don't waste my motherfucking time"? It's that line, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I thought I knew it. It does look to be a very good movie. We're also a very big fan of, what's his name? The actor who plays, I forget his name. The other actor. There is that line too, yes, Raz. Dolph Lundgren, I believe. I think it's Dolph Lundgren in Heat. Al Pacino, Dolph Lundgren, and I believe Robert De Niro. No, Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer, right. Dolph Lundgren is a different one. Where are we remembering Dolph Lundgren from? Val Kilmer is the one we were thinking of, and Robert De Niro. What has Dolph Lundgren even been in? Sasha's been having a fair amount of amusement at me, quote, getting snarkier as of late. Last week, during the Stalker Tuesday stream for last week, when I was going to get some water during the intro, I was discussing West Side Gun with Nyx, and said something along the lines of, it appears this line is about prison food, and that's what got Sasha to start talking again. And then I said, what do people even go to prison for in Buffalo? And then I simply said, we should ask that one friend of ours who lives there. Nyx got quite the kick out of that. Ah, right.
Buy that for $1.
Okay. Dolph Lundgren was in the 1989 Punisher film. That's where we're remembering him from. I see. I don't think there exists a good Punisher film, unfortunately. I don't think he's a character who can be depicted well in a film way. Comics will be fine. Sasha does look forward to playing that one Punisher game with Hikari sometime soon, hopefully, but that'll have to wait until either late March or sometime in April. There is time. There is time. This really is the essence of this game, isn't it? Just sitting around a campfire and listening to somebody play guitar while you just kind of let your day kind of deep into your bones. Ari, Sasha simply stated that's my favorite segment in the Volition game. I admit I could go for some tea right now. Oh. Well, there goes our entertainment. Thank you for the stretch, Redeem. I'll actually go do that while I'm moving to the bar.
Не бздим, народ. Раніше били їх якось і тепер розкидаємо. Головне разом тримати.
Повилазило чортів на нашу голову, а всі ті вчені мочені доекспериментувалися. Сволотиється голодні.
Just a moment, please. I appreciate the stretch, Redeem. That was very necessary. It was very nice. It's a little bit noisy in here, but it'll do. I have to say, I'm very, very excited, along with Sasha and the rest of us. Maybe V isn't, but who really cares what V thinks? I'm very pleasantly excited for when Kelly gets here this week. She'll be arriving on Tuesday night, and we very much look forward to spending some time driving around with her. Sasha wants to drive around and listen to music with her. We're probably going to share some food that Nyx is going to probably make. In fact, we may end up actually having those tacos. We may end up actually having those tacos. V is too scared of you to pipe up over that. She tried to. She tried to. But we're very happy that the mac and cheese is turning out well, Angel. But we're very excited to spend some time with Kelly, because Kelly is... Why not do a little bit of a toast here? Kelly OC has been, probably out of all of the people we have known in this community, the only people who have consistently stuck around as long as Kelly would be Patch, Cell, who we've known longer than anybody in here. A few others. So, Patch, Cell, Albert, probably I would say Drift, and a few other people. But generally speaking, the point is there aren't many people that we know, that we've known as long as Kelly. And in all of that time that we've known Kelly, Kelly has gone to bat for us during times where we truly were not sure if we could trust other people. Kelly has proven to be an indispensable source of comfort and advice and help during times when we needed it. Kelly has absolutely been one of the most enlightening and enjoyable people we have ever had the pleasure of sharing this existence with. And I hope it comes across as genuine when we say that spending time with her in this coming week is probably going to be one of the highlights of this year, if not this decade, for us. We don't wish to say this with the purpose of putting any pressure on you or making you feel like you've some kind of reputation to live up to. You have this reputation because you already live up to it every single day. So we wanted to make it clear that getting to see you this week is going to be wonderful. It is going to be a time of healing. It is going to be a time of joy and celebration, and we greatly, greatly look forward to it. We are going to have a lot of fun with you, dear friend. So please, everybody, a toast to Kelly OC. To Kelly OC. As Sasha would say, and she did in fact say to Tiana yesterday, we hate crew for life. Just a moment, I don't think this is my kind of music. Did the song just end? Cracked a beer in her honor. Speaking of honor, in celebration of yesterday's good news, Sasha sat down with her cup of evening coffee and recorded a video of her watching West Side Grinch and toasting her cup of coffee, and sent it to Tiana and said, "To my bestie and her wife." Just her toasting a cup of coffee while watching West Side Grinch. If that isn't the most Sasha thing a person can do, I'm not sure that the standards could lie any higher. Kelly has gotten through the hate crew some of the roughest times we've ever experienced. She is an absolute treasured soul to share this existence with. This is an interesting song. It almost reminds us a fair bit of Eagles of Death Metal or a little bit of Caius. That riff is a very, very Eagles of Death Metal riff. Hold on. Give me a second. Let me ask our expert here. Yeah, that's an Eagles of Death Metal riff. That is like a super fucking Josh Homme riff. Like it's got like the grooves, it's got like the stumble, it's got everything. Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. I hope that guitar playing bandit out there is back. Have you ever played Dishonored? I certainly haven't. To my knowledge, Sasha has wanted to play it and now owns it in conjunction with Nyx as we share Steam libraries. Which Nyx is frequent to invoke whenever she wants to put Sasha in her place for acting out. She can lock Sasha's Steam library access. But we do own Dishonored now, and she does want to actually play it. Dishonored is one of those games where it is such an obvious pick of a thing she wants to play. She likes to save these kinds of games for rainy days, and not quite this kind of rainy day, but a rainy day. We've taken a great interest in Dishonored, and we very much look forward to playing it at some point. I think it could be really enjoyable. I think it could be lovely, and it's very fun. Because Sasha is very much, or actually most of us, are huge enjoyers of Looking Glass's immersive sims, from their collaborative work with Irrational on System Shock 2 to Thief and Thief 2, and even as well with Arcane, especially. We were very, very big fans of Prey 2017. We thought that was a fantastic piece of work. So, we also even like Deathloop. We like Deathloop a fair bit. So, we would be happy to play Dishonored. We just have to find the right time. If you play it first time on stream, I think it'd be really fun. This is fair. We will fit it in April. Considering that approaches our streamiversary and VTuberversary, it'll be a good thing to do it then. We need to figure out when that is, by the way, and we need to get our hands on a t-shirt that says "No one is illegal." I suppose you will all probably have forgotten about it come then, but the events of the past week have convinced us that when we do a streamiversary, there needs to be a point where Sasha puts on a t-shirt that says "No one is illegal."
День пройшов, купон в кишені.
I was enjoying that, you know. You didn't have to put it away. I suppose you were just... your arm was just getting bent, I see. Oh, that's okay. This game really is something else if you just kind of approach it as this peculiar little vibes game, I suppose, would be. I almost have half a mind to ask if we should actually do anything tonight, but I have a feeling I'm going to be told universally we don't have to. We can simply be. And I think that's fine.
Так зона ж розширюється. Більше місця, більше людей.
Here we go, he's back. You can simply be a bee. This is good news. You'll be a pet. You have been drafted onto American Ninja Warrior and have to parkour. Please don't do this to me. I don't want to be on Rapper Warrior Ninja. With Eric Andre poking me with a cattle prod. I need to find a mod that allows the NPCs to play songs by Red House Painters or Codeine. Oh, Codeine, my beloved. You've been drafted onto us. Huh. That is strange. Guess you finally got her room. That's good to hear. That is very good to hear. Which hotel did you end up going with, by the way? As a heads up, by the way, Kelly, Saturday night is going to be an absolute definite no. Nyx intends to take us out to dinner on that night. She had been meaning to since our birthday, but, circumstances made it rather difficult to. So, as a heads up, that is a definite night you are going to have to entertain yourself, I'm afraid. She wants to take us out to a local, like, cafe and restaurant called The Library. It has a second floor that overlooks much of Main Street through a large window. This lovely old lady we used to know at our old job location named, I believe her name was Ruth. Ruth was a lovely, lovely lady. She informed us if you're moving to this town, you should go to this cafe and restaurant. They have lovely food there. I don't think words can describe how much Ruth's friendship meant to us at our previous job. Ruth was proof that the concept of plurality is a thing that anybody can comprehend if they want to. When we were first discovering things, when Sasha first discovered me and was trying to figure out how she felt about things, and the best of her knowledge was whether she felt one way or another, she would indicate it by wearing a name tag at work that either said Sasha or the number 80. And Ruth picked up on this. She said, I noticed sometimes you come to work and your name is slightly different. And Sasha explained to her the degree of, well, sometimes when I'm feeling a certain way, it's a way that a certain name feels like it describes better than just saying, I feel that way. And when I'm feeling another way that isn't what this name feels like it describes, I like to give that feeling another name. And she also described it as they're kind of like faces that I wear. And Ruth, who is a older, if not senior-aged Christian woman, somehow immediately understood this. She understood this and said, no, I actually understand what that means. I get that. And it got to the point where anytime we'd come in, if we, if we weren't having our name tag on or we were still figuring out, she would say, it's good to see you today. Is it Sasha or 80? And we would tell her. And during our unhousing in October, she was one of the most kind and supporting souls we'd ever met in regards to that. She helped us through it, helped us find, like informed us of locales we could buy furniture for cheap from charity or thrift sources, informed us of good places to eat, and many, many other things. Ruth, during 2025, is easily the coworker we were the happiest to actually become friends with. Next to our friend Morgan, who worked in the meat department, and our friend Keith, who worked in the produce department. And also our friend, I don't know why I'm having trouble remembering her name now. No, you can keep playing. There we go. Another friend of ours who was working in the seafood department. But Keith and Morgan were easily some of our favorites. But Ruth was the one I think we were the happiest to know. She was an absolutely lovely individual, and anytime we got to see her, we immediately got a smile on our face, and we had to try relatively hard to not talk up an absolute storm whenever in her presence, because she was just that comforting of a presence to be around. Whenever we were struggling, we'd ask for a hug and she'd give us one. Whenever things weren't going well for her, we'd ask her to tell us about it, and she would tell us, and we would offer her our own perspective. It really is interesting, and it really does go to show that you can never typecast a person based on who they are. That, generally speaking, I don't think many people would disagree with us when we say that senior-aged white women tend to be the types of people we are extremely wary of, as they are the people who are the most consistently bigoted to us in our current area. And yet, that exact person was the one who was more understanding of concepts of plurality than a lot of other people we know. it felt very refreshing to be able to be open and real about this to a person who you really wouldn't expect to be so understanding and able to grasp this kind of concept. Even to the point where when our unhousing happened, our own family dropped a few hints that they expressed grievances with our behavior that would have been easy to explain if we said we were plural. Of, oh, you were just crying and having a meltdown now, but then as soon as we tell you to get it under control, you just suddenly stopped. That must have been manipulative behavior. It would have been so very easy. Or the idea of, oh, sometimes you have really, you know, like you're like able to perfectly get your words together, and other times you simply just kind of fall apart and don't know how to say anything. And obviously, if we simply said we're plural, it would have technically explained our behavior, but it would not have led to a good result with people like our family and how they view plural people. So to know of a person who I think was around in her 70s or 80s who was so open-minded really did change our perspective on a lot of things and showed us there are a lot of people who you might write off based on their description, and yet they are the types of people who are in your corner when you need them most. They are absolutely the types of people who are in your corner. It was the same for Morgan, who many times when things were going especially bad, when we were overwhelmed with bad news and bad things were happening to our best friends, we would simply come in and we would say, I need a minute, and we would just crash out in the refrigerator section of her meat department. And we would just, she would listen to us. With Keith, there was a moment where we were having a little bit of a moment where he told us that he was going to be going in for surgery the next day that did not have a terribly promising success rate. And we got fairly emotional about it. We started crying on shift, and he came over to us. He checked in on us. He said, are you doing okay? Do you need a moment? Are you safe? Do you need help? Do you need somebody to comfort you? And this man who is 40, maybe even in his 50s, saying this it meant a lot. It really does come down to the types of people you surround yourself with. It hurts a fair bit that our current job site doesn't have that many people we really feel like this about. Perhaps things can progress a little bit better, but we've noticed a trend where a lot of people at our current location just kind of don't really acknowledge us. A long time ago, when maybe, you know, we were a little bit more like V or Sasha at her most bitter, we would have been thankful for this. We would have said, good, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want you to acknowledge me, and I don't want to acknowledge you. But sometimes, especially when Sasha or Mira or sometimes even V is fronting, it is nice to talk to a person. We noticed that while V was fronting today, she was actually a very, very outgoing individual, always liking to give these nice toothy grins to people passing by and saying, hey, good to see ya, or something along those lines. But when you are in a more outgoing headspace, it can be nice to say hi to a person or say excuse me and just get a simple, it's okay, or no worries, or thank you for letting me through. And instead, when you just notice yourself kind of being ignored, it does hurt a little bit. Ari says, working at a grocery store exposed me to a lot of people, and they typically are good people. Helioc says, when people get old, they really do get more set in their ways, but this can go either way, where people get more stubborn and grumpy, and more hateful. Or you chill out and just accept people for who they are. This is absolutely true. I think our adoptive mother kind of liked to portray herself as the latter, but in actuality, she really had not been able to silence the part of her that was closer to the former. A lot of middle-aged neoliberals are close to this, the idea of I'm on the good side. I'm at least not as bad as the right-wingers. But oh, sometimes people on the left take it too far, kind of thing. That was who our mother was, our adoptive mother. We don't know who our biological mother is, and we do still want to meet her someday. I hope it isn't too late. I hope it isn't too late, and we can still find her and tell her all about who we are now. I look forward to that. It's one of many, many, many reasons to keep going. Saying, one day I will see you again. And when I do, I can't wait to show you who your child became. I think in about 15 minutes we will probably close the stream up. It's been another absolutely wonderful little moment of just sharing this time with all of you. Sitting down and talking things through. Sharing news, good and bad. Talking about our feelings, where we intend to go from here. These are the kinds of streams we have the most enjoyment of just a Stalker Tuesday that really does feel like a fireside chat. Like sitting down next to each other and saying, tell me, how has life been treating you? Where has it brought you? Where has the wind blown you to? Where have your feet planted themselves now as soon as it died down? What sceneries do you find yourself surrounded by every time you turn yourself to look only a few degrees left or right? What shadows does the sun cast around you? What do they look like? What color is the sky, and what does it say about your own personal experiences and moods, the things that you see in the clouds above, and the way they mix with the colors to form this little fresco above? Raz says, learning to be plural has been tumultuous, but I've had good friends here to help me. I'm very happy that since you joined the Hate Crew server, you've been navigating this in our plural community sector very nicely. Back when we were still trying to, or when Sasha was still trying to figure out how she felt about plurality in relation to... plurality in relation, like when Sasha was still figuring out how she felt about plurality, primarily in relation to friends like Audrey, Cell, and even Abyss, the idea that plurality would end up becoming such a... The idea that plurality would end up becoming such a massive part of this community that it would end up being given its own entire channel for discussion, and it would get to the point where a not insignificant number of our members are all headmates or facets of different systems. Most of our people happen to be systems, or are learning that they are systems. The fact that as soon as we started kind of becoming a little bit more open about our own plurality, suddenly we started attracting a community of a lot of plural people is genuinely kind of beautiful. And I think tonight we will tell Amber that her jumping out in front of Sasha and tackling her away from a ledge and giving Sasha the inner strength and joy to say, I am plural. I think Amber deserves to know how much of a positive impact that had, not just on us, but on everybody around us. I think that's genuinely beautiful. There's a lot of beauty around us. You really do just have to keep searching for it. My mind goes back to that one news article way back about that one soldier that became a bombshell blonde. Transphobia is a fairly new thing. Absolutely, Bryn says, sounding eepy. A little bit. I admit I am yawning a little, but to be honest, one thing you will notice the more you're around me specifically is that Sasha describes my presence as feeling like your bones are rusting. as feeling like your very body is becoming, like, shaped by the wind, carved out by it. I am a very tired existence, a tired presence, but there can be a lot of comfort in tiredness. Rez says it feels odd. There are moments where I'm not sure where some thoughts are coming from or attributed to. I think even in some degrees, I'm a bit skeptical that this is even real for me. Then I remember what started this. Angel says I'm navigating a lot of the facet aspect of plurality. If I may be completely candid, it scares me. I am interested in how so, but I'm very happy you're exploring this part of yourself. We noticed that a consistent thing that happened, especially because Abyss Myriad informed us it was going to happen, was that when a person accepts their plurality, there is a short period afterwards where they immediately start denying it. It's almost like tissue rejection for your headmates, where you begin to just immediately start questioning it and thinking that you couldn't possibly actually be plural. And it leads to a rather terrifying little segment of time, but it does end. Is that Soldat by Yatnitsa? I called myself plural, and it made sense for a bit. Tried telling my brother about it, and he said, "No, you're not. I would have noticed. Stop self..." No, that is not the way to be. No. Raz says, I think it's helpful how catastrophic of a psychological moment it was to discover Elizabeth's presence. This is fair. Sasha described discovering me and my presence as a similar experience, where she mistook my presence for being a complete absence of emotion. She felt herself so impossibly numb. That was so out of the ordinary that it has to be something like plurality. There. Angel said, me and Nyx are discussing a Sunday dinner stream where we try to decipher MF Doom's Mac recipe, because man delivered that to the website super fucky. That's fair. But Angel, I was interested in what you meant when you described that exploring this part of you felt scary to you. I was interested in hearing you out on that matter. If you feel comfortable with doing so, that is. Ellie said the song has similar chords. Agreed. I like being so many different things, and fragmenting my head into so many concrete things feels scary. You don't want to split. This is a thing that Sasha expressed to Cell at one point. The best way to look at it is this. I don't think this is a thing you need to fear, per se. I think it would be more fair to say, the best way to look at it is this. If you approach this as you would approach having multiple facets of yourself, it makes it easier to get these different parts of yourself to, I suppose the word would be, play nice with each other. It is a lot easier to kind of get them all to sort themselves together. There's things I fear that make no sense as well. This is true. I do think it is worth taking into account that many of us in Sasha's head primarily just represent different parts of her personality or parts of the body. So I represent Rebecca's most stoic and tired feeling and rather blunt side. V represents our snarky and I guess the word would be hater energy. Sasha is our most passionate, creative, and I guess there would be like justice-driven part of us. Amber is our inner child, our mirth personified, and Mira is our caregiver side. All of these are sides that have always existed within us, and ultimately, one of the best things you have to gain by choosing to approach these facets as their own sort of personas is that it makes it easier to be able to discuss with them. All of them are precious. Thank you, Melissa. It is good to see you tonight, and I will do those that hydrate and stretch redeem in just a moment. But the point being that these sides of you have always been here and will always be different facets of you. However, by approaching them as wholesale personas, it can be easier to communicate with them and get them to agree on things and also be able to kind of sort your own thoughts out. Whereas previously, Rebecca did not have many good ways of sorting her troubles out. Instead, now, he calls on me to front rather than Sasha. Whereas Sasha is passionate, yes, but she was also kind of fiery and crashes out sometimes. She instead calls upon me. Or when we need to unwind and we need to kind of try our best to have like a more hopeful view of things, we allow Amber to front. When somebody we love needs to be cared for, we allow Mira to front. And being able to have us all talk amongst each other, personifying these little fragments of ourselves and giving them all their own wholesale seats on a fucking board, essentially, allows our sort of host body as a whole to become more knowledgeable about itself and allows all of these different sides of us to become more harmonious. I don't think you will necessarily lose anything by sort of giving bodies to all of your different facets. I think it is more fair to say that you will stand to gain a sort of inner harmony that is very difficult to have when you sort of consider all of these different parts of yourself to just be fragments of a single thing. Instead, much like Dance Delightful states, you can be a complicated amalgamate. You can be a sort of mixture of all of these little things in tandem in a unity. And it doesn't remove the power of the whole to be made up of a bunch of smaller things that are all given their own flesh. Instead, it strengthens it, I would argue. However, because this is what Audrey and Abyss and Cell and I believe Cammy and multiple other people told us, we will tell you this as well, which is nobody else can tell you what you are and what you're not. And I think this is also important to say to Ari. But nobody, while I suppose I can understand why your brother thought it was the right thing to tell you that you were self-diagnosing, ultimately the thing about plurality, and it's why I actually felt, or rather Sasha felt very, very assured when she was having that moment of, I don't think I'm actually plural, maybe I'm just not like thinking about this the right way. She was told, none of us can tell you if you're plural or not. Nobody can diagnose you. Nobody can just tell you what you are and what you aren't. We will describe our experiences to you. And we will tell you that your experience mirrors ours. But ultimately, the final decision of whether or not you feel you are plural has to be your own decision. It has to be how you choose to approach. How you choose to approach these discoveries of yourself. What helped us really understand why plurality can be such an interesting thing to think about is the way our good friend Spiral Cell put it, which was, think of it this way. The worst case scenario of, like, even, there really isn't anything wrong with trying it. Originally, like, much of the time we knew 80 until Sasha met Amber was this sort of trial run of us sort of treating ourselves as a group of a bunch of different souls together and seeing how we felt about it. And through this trial run, the worst case scenario of you treating these different facets of yourself as their own wholesale bodies that can talk amongst each other, and wholesale bodies that you can speak to individually. The only thing you have to the worst case scenario, is that suddenly you now have a slightly more organized way of sorting out your thoughts and sort of compartmentalizing them into facets that are a little bit more manageable. The worst case scenario is that you have a method of being able to... Sasha, I think you're fronting. I disagree. She's sitting next to me and she's absolutely kind of trying to have her own input, but it's still me. The point being, the worst case scenario you have, if you choose to approach how you feel as being plurality, the worst case scenario is that all of these different moods, facets, fragments, and sort of headspaces that you're in now have their own names and are easier to approach as parts of a whole. You can organize your thoughts and find a deeper inner harmony. That is the worst thing that can come out of it. And the best thing you can get out of it is having a whole lot of beauty in yourself and learning that all of these different parts of yourself could possibly be their own little personas. And granted, even then, every plural person is different. I don't experience plurality the way that Cell and Audrey do. They don't experience it the way that Abyss does. Everybody experiences it differently. And I think that's kind of what makes it such a beautiful thing. I will say this. Personally, I've been told this by Cinco, who I think is another great person to talk to about this. Try your best to not look into online plural-focused spaces. There is a lot of elitism and weird things that I don't really think you should expose yourself to if you're attempting to have a journey of self-discovery that leads to a better and more open state of mind about these things. Don't do it. I think the girly, pink, almost gal adjacent part is the biggest risk of splitting off. Well, here's the thing, is that it doesn't mean you ever won't be her. Surely there are days you wake up and don't feel like that. It doesn't mean that she won't be here or could be gone. It just means those some days that it's not here are a little bit easier to explain. What makes... Exactly, you don't really lose these parts of yourself. They're always here. Let me read this earlier message from Raz, by the way. Raz said, I understand what you mean, Angel. I do feel a sense of mourning that Elizabeth and I are not fully one and the same. But I do really enjoy that Elizabeth gets to fully be herself without having to have me or Ivana bleed into her, and vice versa. Before, Elizabeth was diluted between myself and Ivana. Now she feels brighter, happier, more pure. And she gets to rest when she needs it, rather than all of us having to endure everything constantly. And this is probably due to Sasha telling you about the month that I basically took a whole vacation from this headspace and said, October was too much. I need to recharge. Angel says, self-diagnosing is a word people with 2 seconds of medical experience like to use to make people feel bad about talking how they feel. This was a thing that Sasha had to have a discussion with a longtime friend of hers when Sasha came out as plural to this person. This person proceeded to go on a massive tangent about how Sasha was self-diagnosing and that she should probably pursue a DID diagnosis, and when Sasha said things like, well, I really do believe plurality is more of its own thing. A lot of people were trying to pigeonhole the transgender identity into something different for a while until recently. And this friend proceeded to fly off the handle about it and say a lot of very inadvertently hurtful things. That has led to us not really being able to talk to this person for very long conjunctions, because we still do not really trust this person to have as open of a mind as they once did. I suppose it can't be helped, but it does hurt. Angel said, I may hit up you, Raz, and others. Legitimately, Angel, I and Sasha can both vouch for Audrey as well. She's a little bit difficult to get a hold of, but hitting her up later at night, due to that being her noontime and afternoon in Australia, may be a good idea. I would 100% agree with the concept of you know yourself better than anyone else. Raz says, I don't feel like I lost these parts of myself. In actuality, I get to love them in a way I couldn't before. It's easier to love someone else than to love ourselves, and now I get to love Elizabeth and Ivana with all my heart. And even then, you are still technically loving something that is part of yourself. It's a stepping stone. Angel said, anyways, in context of online plural spaces, oh no, that's something I don't fuck with ever since transitioning. I learned that the hard way. Reddit and 4chan trans types ruined that shit. Absolutely, I've heard. But yes, Angel, you are free to hit us, Raz, Audrey. I think Lav would be another good person to talk to about this. It is not a thing you really should feel like you have the pressure to diagnose yourself as, but if it's a thing you're questioning about, approaching it on its merits of saying, let's give this a shot and see how I feel. You can always just chalk it up at the end to, I wasn't and I tried it. A good friend of ours, Ariane, who also now goes as Molly, Taskbari, had a similar situation where she considered herself to be plural, gave it a shot, and realized she wasn't. But she gave it a shot, and that was a thing to be proud of. So definitely talk to people about it. And of course, nobody knows you better than yourself. We cannot tell you who you are. Only you can decide how you feel. Ari said, I've been posting in the Discord and I might continue talking about this there. That's fair. We are certainly going to be calling it soon as we're getting very, very tired. It's been a long day. Tomorrow's going to be longer, and we need the rest. It's been really immediately transformative with my perspective on myself. Yvonne and Elizabeth both openly tell me they love me, and I love them both. And I get to see their thoughts. I know they're telling the truth. They've been actively stepping in and stopping any self-loathing thoughts. This is what I do for Sasha. I don't know if love is the word for it for me, but Sasha is an individual I'd greatly care for. Mira and Amber love Sasha. They also love each other, and they say they love me. Whenever Sasha is fronting and beginning to have extremely negative or crash out thoughts, I tend to step in and say, hey, you need a moment. or Amber, or Mira, or one of them doesn't. So, you know,
Можна відпочивати.
it does help. With this, I think this is a good avenue for us to call it a night. We've been going for 3 hours. I think Sasha may have the ability to go for 5. I am not so wired, as she might put it. I'm going to give us a very simple raid message. I'm going to gently kind of gesture you all out the door. And I am going to see you another day. Tonight's raid message will be fairly simple. I am not going to go to an end screen like Sasha does. I'm not going to go to an end screen like Sasha does. I'm not going to do any of that. We're just going to sit here and we're going to still relax with one another until, you know, the fat lady sings. I think I'm going to raid our good friend.
Хто там натомно працювати любить? У продажу
Well,
нові приблуди, нічники. Тож заходимо, купуємо.
lots of people on tonight. Lots and lots of people. Let's raid Alexis. Or Aleski. Let's raid Aleski. Aleski's playing the System Shock 2 25th Anniversary Remaster, which is a game that we were just talking about because of our affinity for immersive sims. So, we'll raid Aleski. Aleski's pronouns are she, her. Do be aware if you were thinking of playing System Shock 2, you should be wary of possible spoilers. System Shock 2 is a game you absolutely should play. It is a insanely foundational masterpiece. I will see you all in her chat. Please respect her pronouns. Please respect her rules. If there should be any infractions, we will know, and you will not be allowed back in here. We will see you next Sunday for Burnout 3 with Kelly and Sasha. We hope you all have a good night. Be safe. Be good to yourselves. And as Sasha always says, free chance Nezumi, Pripyat City hate crew for life.